My worst gig. My worst gig goes back to, I think it was the summer of 1997. I was almost 17 years old. I was in my first serious band. I've been in a couple of bands before, but this was my first actual serious band that actually played shows. And we had played 3 or 4 shows prior to this worst gig. And we were still in high school. I think we were juniors in high school or sophomores in high school. And there was a new club that had opened up in a couple of towns over called Club Oasis. And they wanted a big opening night. And so they asked around and they gathered what they thought would be a good draw for this club. Now, in thinking back, the show was like 2 weeks away. And they hired a bunch of just no-name locals with like one kind of known local. And this was also notable because this was the first time that we had been offered $100. We were offered money to play a show. And we were really excited. We were like, absolutely, yes, let's practice. We practiced a whole bunch leading up to this show. I was playing through, it was like a Crate GX, I want to say it was a GX15, or maybe it was something slightly bigger than that, but it was a Crate amp. And you know, we had our stuff together and we had rehearsed our songs quite a bit. So we show up to the show and we load in and it's our turn to sound check. And there was like maybe 5 or 6 different bands on this bill. We go to sound check, everything is fine. And we get off stage, we take our stuff down oddly. That was probably our first clue that that maybe something was wrong. So showtime comes up and each band is loading on and there's various kind of weird technical difficulties going on throughout each band's set. You know, mics cutting out or, you know, parts of the PA not going well. This is opening night for a new club, so you know what, maybe they have bugs to work out or something like that. It's my band's turn, who are ironically named Subway Rocket after the Mesa Boogie amplifier of the 90s. We get up on stage, I load my amp up and I load my pedal board up and I fire at my amp, and the bass amp has a DI out, and sound guys will typically plug into this DI to get a direct feed of the bass DI signal to the board. I see the sound guy do that to the bass amp, and then he comes over to my amp and he goes, well, which one do I plug in for the DI? And he's looking for an XLR. He's thinking my guitar amp has a DI, which it does not. And I am not super sure that it doesn't. I don't really know, because maybe the preamp or it had a power amp out and a headphone out on the back of this amplifier. And he says, well, that's weird. It only has a 1/4 inch out from the power amp. I'm gonna take a tap out of the power amp. I have to go get an adapter 1 second. So he returns with an XLR to 1/4 inch adapter from his mixing console, and he plugs it into the power amp out of my amplifier. And I tell him, I don't think that should be plugged in there. I think you should be using a microphone. And he very curtly tells me to shut up, I'm a dumb kid. And I think, you know what, maybe I am. I don't know. So we play our set, and we're about 3 songs in. And I'm noticing that my guitar is becoming very fuzzy. And I don't have a fuzz pedal. And I'm rocking out, and it gets kind of fuzzy, and I think I hear the amp kind of die down. And by the time I look back at it, it's fine. So I keep playing the song ends. There's no one at this show, keep in mind. I think 5 people show up because it's like a Wednesday night or something. It was horrible. We start the next song and my amp is really starting to fade in and out, and I know that it's not the PA. It's my amplifier is like dying or something, and I don't know why. Finally, it completely cuts out, and I go back to the amplifier, and I can't figure out what's wrong, and it's really hot. So I turn it off and I turn it on again, and it's working. So I go back to continue the set, and I'm kind of horrified at this point. And I'm playing, and then our singer kind of looks at me, and then he looks over to behind me, and then looks to me, and he goes, hey. And there is smoke billowing out of my amplifier. My amplifier is on fire. And what I know now is like the impedance, he was taking a load out of the power amp of this cheap, crappy combo amp into the board, and basically it was trying to drive another speaker cabinet, or there was some kind of mismatch, and it was frying the amp. My amplifier is pouring up black smoke, and I completely don't have anything now at this point. I look over to the sound guy because I don't know what to do. The rest of the band keeps going. They're still playing. And the sound guy is doing this at me because he thinks it's my fault. So he's standing there and just flipping me off, thinking that he's convinced it's something I did, right? Because he can do no wrong. The song ends. I'm like, guys, I don't have another amp. I'm like, that's it, we're done. So we play 3/4 of our set. I no longer have an amplifier. We get off stage, there's like 5 people. We wait around to get paid. And we don't even get paid because not enough people showed up. And the $100 that we were supposed to get went to the headlining band, who were called Cage, I think. And they were a very loud, aggressive punk rock band. And we ended up getting nothing, and it cost me an amplifier as well. That was the worst gig ever.